voice now?
No, no.
Oh, okay. So,
welcome everyone. My name is Julie Crooks and I am Curator Arts of Global Africa and the Diaspora here at the AGO. And I am thrilled to welcome you to what I think will be a generative, exciting, insightful conversation between Oluseye and Neil Price. But before we begin, and also I want to mention that after the talk, please do catch the exhibition in the front gallery. Oluseye
Orimipe.
Yes. I definitely can't do the Yoruba accent. But yeah, please do try to catch the show following the talk. Excuse me. Sorry. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge that the AGO operates on land that is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe Nation and was also the territory of the Haudenosaunee and Wendat confederacies. Since 1701, Toronto has been governed by the Dish with One Spoon Treaty between the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and allied nations, an agreement to share and steward the resources around the Great Lakes peacefully. And with that, I'd like to take a moment to thank my colleagues in programming, our brand new colleague. Let's give her a round of applause. Andrienne just started. So excited to have her as a colleague. And now I want to welcome to the stage Oluseye and Neil Price. Thank you.
Is that YSL?
I can't afford YSL.
Check. Okay.
Hello? Okay.
Can everyone hear okay?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, and thank you for being here. Delighted to welcome you to this conversation. I've been an admirer of Oluseye's work for a few years now, and we've been in conversation and have had opportunities to talk on a podcast that I did not too long ago. And delighted, I think, today to take on a bit of a journey, certainly starting off with the exhibition here. But I also want to broaden the scope of it and invite Oluseye to take us through his practice, the intentionality around some of the aspects that you bring into your work. So, first of all, congratulations on Orimipe.
Orimipe.
And I think congratulations on a couple of fronts. One, that you have a show here in the AGO, but two, that you've managed to poignantly and quietly bring in Yoruba spirituality into the AGO, which is no small feat. So I want to get into what the show presents, but I promise, as I said to you, we're not going to do a seminar on Yoruba spirituality. Let's start with the word Ori. If you could maybe talk about that word and its significance to the exhibition, and more importantly, its significance in terms of the exhibition here in the AGO.
Okay. First of all, thank you everyone for being here. So Ori translates to head, and it's a metaphysical concept amongst the Yoruba people, and we believe that your destiny, your spirituality, your intuition all reside in your head. And it works in parallel with the idea of Iwakbere, and Iwakbere is the strive to have a calm, gentle spirit, to be in, to be one with nature, and to be of service to your community. And in Yoruba religions, there's a belief that you're able to heal yourself spiritually and physically by consulting the Orishas. So the divination tray in the show is one example of how you're able to consult with the Orishas. And the idea is that when your Ori is aligned with your Iwapele, then you're living your best life, essentially. So yeah, that's what Ori means in a nutshell. But back home, I think my interest in the word stems from a saying we say back home, which is Orio be, Orio da. And those are insults implying like your head is not correct, your spiritual head is not correct, there's something wrong with you. And they're used colloquially, almost like an endearment, but it truly means that you're not all right. So it's for me, I was interested in how like the everyday is also connected to the spiritual realm.
And in this work, you have, as you said, the divination tray, 16 cowrie shells, which you've cast in bronze.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about the role of the cowrie shell, and in particular, how, in terms of their configuration, how when they're cast in this way, they sort of act as portents into a possible future. They tell us something.
Yeah.
Tell us about how they work in Orimepe.
Okay. So when you I actually did this divination practice for the first time when I was in Brazil, and I go see the Iyalao, the Babalao, the priestess, and I went to see her because I wanted to know who my governing Orisha or deity is. It's not a good comparison, but it'd be like trying to find out what your sign is in astrology. It's a very, very bad comparison, but just to simplify. So in the process, if you see in the show, there's the bell that's, you ring, and that's to summon the Orishas into the space. So she did that, and then she chants a few things, and then she tosses the cowrie shells. And the idea is that the Orishas have, they've decided where the cowries will fall on the tray, and then she then interprets that to give you answers. So you think of the question you have, she tosses the cowrie shells, and then she gives you the answer. So that's how it works in a nutshell.
Thank you. One of the things I find very fascinating and appealing about your work is you seem to be doing translation work. And by that I mean, what you've just described is a very alive, participatory, ephemeral process and tradition. And yet you've brought it into a museum in this case, and you've made those cowrie shells larger than they normally would be.
Yeah.
The divination tray is massive in this case.
They're typically only about a foot wide.
Yeah.
The one in the show is 9 feet.
So I'm just wondering about how you go about taking these practices, which you're learning about and you're thinking about, and you're moving them from one sort of context into another. And what you decide in terms of your artistic practice, what to bring into the museum, and maybe what not to bring in.
Okay. I think for me, I'm always trying to capture a feeling. And I think going into that practice, I was nervous. I mean, I'm from Nigeria, I was raised Catholic, and back home, like, these things are considered taboo. So even me wanting to like come face to face with these practices was like very nerve-wracking. I waited until the end of my residency in Brazil in month 3 to go in to do the practice. So I think I went in scared, I was nervous.
Could you explain why? The history of that a bit?
I think just it's colonization at its core. This sort of demonizing of African spiritual practices as, it's the devil, it's archaic, it's darkness. So all of those ideas, obviously, like I was raised in. I don't think that I would have been able to do what I did in Brazil and Nigeria. I think the fear of doing it back home in a place that I know would just have been too much for me. But I think how I translate those rituals into like formal art presentations is I'm trying to capture, for me, it's the feeling. Like, the fear. So like you walk into the space, it's dark. You hear the bells, it's jarring. You don't really know what to expect, right? So for me, that represents the fear. And then the chanting starts, but then what my colleagues in the videos are saying, like it's in Portuguese, but it's so soothing. And for me, that represents the peace and the ease of the practice itself. Like once she started doing it, I was like, wow, there's really nothing to be scared of. Like this feels so natural. Like it feels like I've known this my whole life.
Yeah.
That truly is how it felt for me.
That's amazing. And, you know, I share in that experience of being told that, you know, these forms of spirituality are to be avoided.
At all costs.
At all costs, right? So what I think is amazing in the work that you're doing, I mean, we'll talk about some of the specific works in a minute, but you are openly learning as you go. You've told me in the past, like, you know, this is not a deep sort of, you're not looking to be a babalao, right? Right?
You never know.
But so you're learning, and as you're learning, you're bringing it into your artistic practice, which in my view takes some courage. Are you going deeper in that learning? Where do you see using Yoruba as a basis, as an inspiration, as a starting point in your artistic practice? Do you sense you're going deeper into that space, that thinking?
I think presently I'm only going as deep as I think is required to pull other people in. I'm interested in showing people of African origin that there's other ways to be spiritual. There's non-Abrahamic religious ways to find peace. There's ways that are more aligned with who we are, that are more aligned with, and I think so much of like Black Christianity, the way we worship, it's so African, like spiritual based. Like when I was in Brazil, like seeing the chanting, hearing the music, the drums, I'm like, you're already doing it. You're already doing it, you know? So I think presently that's as far as like my interest in Yoruba spirituality is. It's about who can I rally into this, even just the curiosity of knowing, not to get people to practice, but to pull them in and to confront that fear.
Yeah.
Because I think religion and spirituality, it's such a huge part of how a lot of us identify. So when I faced that fear, I was like, this is the thing I've been the most scared of my life.
Yeah.
And it was so liberating to like have that experience. And I fear nothing now, like absolutely nothing. And I love other people to feel that way. And the great thing about African spiritual practices is that there's no guilt. You can be yourself, you can party all night. You can have an OnlyFans account and also be the manifestation of an Orisha. I met people who are living like all the facets of their lives, and it was just so beautiful to see. Like there's no contradictions in self. Like who you are is who you are, and you can be all of these things, and all of these parts of you are celebrated. That's what I want people to discover. Christianity does not give you that.
Before we move from the show, I want to give you a chance to sort of talk about its origin. You know, there's some amazing images of you actually working on the tray. You were working with, was it Yorgo?
Yorgo.
Yeah. Tell us about actually the making of the show and what it took to sort of bring it here.
Okay. So traditionally, the divination trays will be, the Babalawo will commission the best carver in all of the land to make the divination tray. So he'll inform the design of it. And I wanted to mimic that practice. So Yorgo, as far as I'm concerned, is one of the best carvers in the city of Toronto. So I approached him, I was like, hey, will you work on this with me? And he was like, I'm down. So I sketched what I wanted carved onto the tray, and Yorgo did the carving. So for me, it was really important to honor the ritual of how the tray is made. And what was really special about, actually before I get there, was, so it's my face overlaid with a Yoruba Ife head. And I'm always interested in connecting myself to my ancestry, but specifically to the lineage of Yoruba craftsmen. I think of other artists like Rotimi Fani Kayode, who who believed that he was a descendant of the greatest Yoruba creators. And I like to think that it's the same for me. We started carving actually a year ago.
Right.
About a year ago was when we started working on that carving. And there was these moments where, you know, like Yoruba is of Greek origin. He had recently lost his dad. I had recently lost my grandma and my brother a couple of years ago. And we had these like really deep moments where we would just start crying because I truly felt like I was seeing my brother and my grandma, and Yogo felt the same way. He was like, I can see my dad in this work, like we're tapping into something that is actually greater than the two of us, or greater than what we see physically. So yeah, that's how the divination tray was made.
And you've been working with cowrie shells for a while. You have a work, I believe it's titled The Weight of My Dreams Will Not Drown Me. Tell me about the cowrie and why you're drawn to it as a artifact, as a object, its significance.
Yeah. Okay, so thinking about the cowries in relation to the divination tray, you know, it's looking at the ideas around like one's destiny and, you know, coming to terms with who you are. So I first made the cowries in Ivory Coast, and there's 48 of them, and they're equivalent to my weight and to a line of credit that I took in 2016 so I could pursue art full time. So that was my way of securing my destiny. I was like, if I'm going to do this art thing, I can't work at bars and be tired and go home and like paint and draw. Like it was just too much for me. So I was like, I need to take charge of my life. So I got that line of credit, and it was in direct conversation with what the divination represents, which is about, you know, fulfilling your destiny. So the first 48 were made with the intention that I would be able to pay off the line of credit if all of them sold. So I had like a debt per ratio, a debt per kilogram ratio that I used to calculate the value of each cowrie shell. So that was the first time I cast cowries in bronze.
And you use them like throughout your work. I mean, in some of those totemic sculptures, I think in the gumball machines, there's cowries.
Yeah, I cast them in porcelain as well. So that cowrie is probably about this big,
right.
And that's cast in porcelain.
Yeah. So there's this continued fascination. You're drawn to the cowrie.
Yeah, it's definitely a through line across my work, and it's an object that across the African diaspora, like, it's revered. So for me, it's like I can go to Brazil and they get my work right away.
Yeah.
Like probably get it the most of anywhere else I've been to.
The other thing I think about when I think about your practice is some of its complexities, how you pair seemingly contradictory ideas. So the sacred, the spiritual, the sexual. There was an image there that was very much like
the phallus?
Yeah, the phallus kind of, if we could go back to that. Yeah.
Can you pause this?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I remember, you know, having a conversation with you where you said earlier on, these tensions or these fragments felt contradictory, like they felt like you were struggling through them, and more recently they're starting to cohere, they're starting to feel as though they're all part of what you're trying to do. Could you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think after my trip to Brazil, like what I kind of started getting into earlier, and I just saw how you could live your truth. You know, you could be a gay man, but also be the manifestation of this like supreme deity, and your entire community like reveres you. For me, it was just like it was a moment where I was like, wow, like all parts of me, all facets of me are valid. All parts of me are sacred. I'm a man, I'm African, sometimes I'm femme, I'm an animal, I was raised by my mother. And I feel like all of these different parts feed into the sensitivity around my work and the attention to detail and the ways in which I'm able to use very hard materials, rubber, iron, wood, but then use them in a way that will be very elegant. So I truly celebrate all of the facets of my existence. And I think that is one thing that this interest in Yoruba spirituality has confirmed for me.
That's awesome. You mentioned rubber, and one of the. Can I say that you coined the term? I like saying.
I did. I coined the term.
Yeah, okay. So diasporic debris. That when I started looking at your work, and we had those earlier conversations, that was a term that really resonated. So in your Eminado series, if there's a shot of the you have these fragments, pieces of various objects that you encountered, you've stumbled upon in some cases. Sometimes people will gift them to you, if I'm not mistaken. Usually rubber, but with various metal, sometimes different glass, other substrates. Yeah. Walk us through this work, and I want to come to the question of your traveling, because I know that's been a very important part of your practice, and it's allowed you to create Eminado. But yeah, just talk a little bit about Eminado and that term you coined.
So I had a brain injury in 2018, and at the time I was still primarily painting, but I was bored of it. So I go on these walks and I just started collecting objects that I was drawn to in the streets, and I realized that they were all primarily black. And then I started piecing them together, and then there was an interest in what else exists in the world, like what else can I find if I start to travel intentionally to collect these objects. And so in the later half of 2018, I started to travel, and I would go to just wherever blackness has been or will be or has been, or wherever I've been, because I feel like my presence in that space makes it a black space. And I would collect these objects and piece them together. And I was thinking about talismans, and I was thinking about specifically the talismans that Africans had taken on journeys across the Atlantic. And I was also thinking about, what gifts could I give to all of those people who made those journeys? So, Eminado, they're soft and they're hard. I reference BDSM as I make them because I'm thinking about objects that can be both pleasurable, but that can also cause pain. So I was thinking about objects that are talismans, and they're offering a spiritual protection, but they could offer physical protection if you needed to protect yourself. I was also thinking about things like, rattles for babies on those ships. So a lot of them are actually the one down there with the nail, the curved bit at the end.
Yeah.
It's actually like a baby's wrist is like a wristband, but then it has the sharpener at the end. So I was thinking about things that could be hidden in interesting ways, and then could be used to protect oneself. And how this work comes together is sometimes I'll know there's a history connecting two places together. So say Salvador in Brazil with Lagos, Nigeria, and then I'll intentionally pick two objects from both of those places and fuse them together. And then other times I fuse objects together purely because they look good together or they fit together. And then I'll do the research to see what histories might exist between those two places. So it's been an interesting way to also discover these unknown histories that that I didn't know, but also finding ways to create new connections between places. And what I really like about this work is that there's no hierarchy in place. In my mapping of Black existence, an object collected from a dump in Lagos is just as important as something I've collected from the Door of No Return in Gorée Island, Senegal. And then I fuse those things together. And I often will take the works back to the people that live in those places to explain to them what I'm doing.
And beneath all of that work and creating of the works is immense travel. So you've been traveling, you're a traveler. But tell me about some of the places you've traveled to and which ones, you've mentioned Brazil a few times, clearly, but what other places have been really important to your practice? I know you've made works in South Africa, you mentioned Ivory Coast. Talk about the travel a little bit and how it inspires the work.
The thing that's great about the travel is also more than equally as important as the objects is the narratives and the anecdotes that I hear from people. So sometimes the way I choose to make the Eminardo sculptures or the idea or the inspiration for the work actually comes from the conversations that I've had with people. And a lot of my work actually stems from these oral histories. Because I think of oral histories that I collect as material. You know, so for me it's that fusion of what's been said to me, but also what I've collected from those places. In terms of travel, I think about diaspora, and for me it's always the thing that really inspires me about traveling is to go to a place and see a version of someone that I know elsewhere. And then I just think about us being manifestations of ourselves throughout time and place. And I think that's what keeps me going to these different places. I'm like, oh, I know you, I've met you before, you know, and I'm like, there's different versions of you that
manifestation.
Yeah. You know, there's different versions of you that have existed that I may not know, but I know the version of you. And the objects allow me to sort of like embody that.
Yeah.
Whereas where one object can represent the multiple manifestations of a person.
And in thinking about the transatlantic, thinking about diaspora, you take on some pretty weighty subjects. So displacement, you've in your work taken up colonization, anti-Black racism, the Middle Passage.
Oh, can I say something about this work?
Yeah, please.
Oh, the other thing that's interesting is I also take a photo of it in situ, so I have the coordinates of where everything I've collected has come from. So the other thing I'm working on right now is like a cartographic tool that maps Blackness through my own travels across the globe.
So, yeah, I was just going to comment on the element of play in your work. If we could go to the sculptures,
The totems?
yeah, the totems, right? Like gumball machine. And to the right, we have the Dogon ladder as the inspiration for that
Yes.
work.
Yeah.
To talk about the importance of remaining playful, despite the fact you're taking on very weighty subjects.
Mm-hmm. The play comes from the objects I find. I often will let the objects I find dictate what I will make.
Right.
I don't often set out knowing what I'm going to make, but I always like to reference the things in pop culture that have stuck with me. Like I love this image of this Nigerian actor from the movie Alien, and it's just like been one that is been stuck in my head forever. So with this work, with Good Luck Totem, I was looking at the ways in which Blackness has been commercialized and commodified, hence the cowrie shells in the vending machine. But of course, it's placed high up there, out of reach, on these totems. And the totems are inspired by various African spiritual objects. So here we have the Dogon ladder, which is typically placed in the front of a home, and it's meant to it's there so that when someone passes in the home, their path to the afterlife is shorter, and it's right there. So for me, it's like the work is looking at how Blackness is a sacred thing, it's revered, it's precious, it's out of reach, but on the other hand, it's also like commercialized. It's been commodified, it's accessible to everyone. So that's where the play comes in for me. It's like wanting to like look at these serious topics, but also wanting to have fun with it. And this work in particular was also inspired by a Nicki Minaj bar, where she goes, you know, my money's so tall, my Barbie's gotta climb it. So I was, so for me, these are the kind of ways I make the work fun for myself. I love pop music, I love pop culture. I'm always listening to it, and often will be listening to like pop music as I make this work.
Which leads to interesting, I was going to say discoveries, but because in that you have something that's deeply ancestral, historical, and then you find ways to bring it right into the contemporary.
Yeah.
And you see that right throughout your work. Let's talk about the work that I think brought us together initially, Plowing Liberty.
Now you want to get serious.
Yeah, let's talk about Plowing Liberty. So this was the first set of work that I was introduced to of Oluseye's, and what I find really interesting about Plowing Liberty is there's so much story connected to this, and I hope you could unpack a little bit about Miss Myrna and the oral histories that you were entrusted with during your visits to Preston, but also how you manage in this work to, in a very elegant way, raise the issue of racism, really. You know, so in these sculptures, you have fused farming implements from various historical sites across Canada and the US, and you fuse them. You'll see at the bottom are hockey sticks, a very contemporary white, I'll say, space and domain, particularly in the Canadian context. So I'm hoping you could do a couple of things with Plowing Liberty. Talk about those conversations with Miss Myrna, and then talk about the actual sculptures and what you were trying to do in making those fusions.
Okay, so I started going to the Prestons, I think 8 years ago, and I was fortunate to meet Miss Myrna. Unfortunately, she passed away in 2019. And we would just sit down, she'd bake banana bread, and I love older people, and we'd just like sit down and talk for hours. And she told me all kinds of things. But one of the things she said that really stuck with me was that her ancestors essentially dug their own graves because the land that they were given was so poor. Now, Miss Myrna was a descendant of a mix of Jamaican Maroons and Black loyalists from the US. But that line really stuck with me, and for years, this was even before I started doing sculpture, but I was like, I need to break out with painting. I find it very limiting, and there's so much more that I want to say. And that line just really was like, it was always there. And then my neighbor had thrown out some hockey sticks, which I grabbed. Because at that point I wasn't making sculpture, but I'm a little bit of a hoarder, like a tidy hoarder. But I've always been collecting things. So I take the hockey sticks and I take them home and I put them beside like my gardening tools, and I noticed they were roughly the same height. And at that point I was like, that's it. Literally, I sat on that quote from her for like 3 years, and in that moment I was like, this is it. And there's something just about trusting when you have those moments, and I really leaned into it. And this was around the time where Mocha had reached out about, November is in the audience. So this was around the time where they had reached out about being in Triennial. So I made the first one, and I got on my bike and I took it down to the team at Mocha, and they're like, wow, this is great, like there's something here. So at that point I started doing more research, started finding out some of the locations in Ontario where Black loyalists had settled, and then I started sourcing farm tools from those parts of the country, but also the places in the US where they had migrated from. So I was on eBay buying farm tools. And I got some things that are as old as like from the 1800s, so I was very sad to actually have to cut through them, but I was like, this is part of the process of giving them like a new life. So started fusing them together, and for me, the work looks at the hardship, the toil of the soil, in conversation with the ease of like ice hockey, the ice, the snow. On one hand, we can. It's a whole spectrum of things. It could be blackness and whiteness. It could be leisure and sport. And for me, I see both objects as being necessary parts of patriotism to a place. I think sportsmanship is just as exciting in how it brings a country together. But I also think that labor is one that goes unrecognized a lot of the time, and also just the disparity contemporarily in how much these people are paid. Like, why aren't our farmers paid? Like, why is there a farming issue in Ontario? Like, why are so many farmers going out of business when our hockey players are getting paid so much? So the work looks, there's it exists in different contexts. It exists presently, and it exists in the past.
And recently you were able to show, not this work, but you were able to go back to the East Coast. You've had some shows, Dalhousie with Pamela.
Yeah.
And what was the other show?
At the AGNS.
Right. What was that like then, in terms of being the recipient of these oral histories, that inspired this work, and now going back to that setting? I remember you'd said something to me about you felt like oral histories were becoming really important, even more so, or they had clarified something for you.
Yeah. I think special about oral histories, it's about how I was made to feel when they were told to me. And then also like getting these histories from like older people and realizing they might not be here tomorrow. So there was a sense of a responsibility. There was an urgency for me to like make something out of the time I shared with those people and to turn what they've told me into something that will remember them.
Are there images from the work you did on the East Coast?
On the East Coast, well, this piece, this was done on the East Coast.
Right.
Yeah. So the fence was sourced from the shores of Africville, and the flag actually made in the Ivory Coast.
And you've titled it "Subject to the Tide" after David Hammond's obviously paying homage to his famous Pan-African U.S. flag. Tell me where this came from.
So there was something about wanting to center the histories, the stories of the people from specifically North Preston in a Canadian context. I feel like it's a community of people that are so necessary, but a lot of their history isn't known. What we hear about them here isn't always the best. So I was like, I want to go see the origins of Black people in Canada. So I went there, I went to the church, and that's where I met Miss Myrna. And Pamela and I were playing with how to mount this flag. And while I was there doing a residency last summer, I remembered that I had seen this fence, and I had seen this fence in 2018. So I went back to the site hoping that the fence was there, and it was there, and it just so happened that it was like literally the same, it was the right dimensions for this flag. Wow. And when I tell you I trust that I'm anointed, I'm not kidding, I truly believe it. Because you can't make this up. Because even the decision of what size the flag should be was just like a very on-the-spot decision I made with the man in Grand-Bassam, Ivory Coast. So I measured it and I was like, oh my God, it fits. Email Pamela, like, I think I have it. Can we take this thing from the site? And they were like, yeah, we can do that. So for me, this work looks, it's looking at the, I'm like, how do I want to explain this work? Because it's another one that says a lot of things. So the baptisms at Africville were legendary. People would come in from the United States to witness them. There'd be a procession going straight from the Seaview Baptist Church just above, and it would go all the way down to the water. So for me, I was like, there's something sacred about pulling this object from the water, because if you're familiar with the history of Africville, it was destroyed in the 60s by the government. So the fence in this instance becomes a witness to those atrocities, but it's also a witness to the good things that happened there. So again, you have this object that is looking at the duality of Black life in that site.
And I feel as though we should talk about Black art as well, because, correct me if I'm wrong, it's there now.
Yes.
This was a work, can we go to it just so? This was a work that was originally installed at Ashbridges Bay here in Toronto. It was situated in that space facing
Africville, yeah.
And it's making its way there.
It's already there.
It's there.
It's already there. So when I made this work, I was like, I hope this can go to Africville. And of course, the work is inspired by the. Can I pause this? Oops. Okay. Yeah. So the work is inspired by, again, another oral history.
Yes.
Pastor Al, I met in North Preston. And he had told me that in the 80s, he had this huge plan to take a group of about 20 people from North Preston to Sierra Leone. Because you have the history of about 2,000 Black loyalists who, after being moved to Halifax, would go on a journey and help start Freetown in Sierra Leone. So again, I was like, I don't know this history. Like, I'm African and I've been in Canada 20 years, and this is the first time. How do I not know this? So again, another piece of information that stuck with me, and I was like, I'm going to make work about this. I don't know how, when, but I will. So there was an opportunity to apply. I applied for a grant, got the money to do this, and I made this work in response to that. What was I going to say? What was the question, guys?
No, I was just talking about Black art and how it seems that,
Well, how it's going to travel.
yes, and it's tying you back to this space of the industries, the East Coast. There's something that keeps drawing
the
you
East
back.
Coast is amazing. Like, when we talk about like Canadians being nice, the nicest hospitality is in the East Coast, and it's specifically amongst the Black communities. I've been around everywhere, and I'm not biased. I'm not biased at all, but like, that is like prime hospitality, because it's like Salon. There's just like a warmth and an energy that you get there. So it's a place that and it's very rural. There isn't a lot there, but I'm so drawn to that place. So yeah, Black art currently is in the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia, and in summer of next year, it will actually go to the Africville site.
Right.
Yeah. So my dream did come
That's
true.
powerful. I know we're getting close to our time, but I wanted to give you a chance to talk about something that you shared about where your artistic practice is seemingly moving inward. You're traveling less. Was that a recent decision to travel less, or a desire to feel grounded, let's say?
Or lack of money.
Or, I like, it sounds better to say you're looking to, let's go with that. But yeah, this idea of going inward, maybe finding rootedness, share a little bit about that, and are there any particular works that you would say are coming out of that sense? Yeah.
The thing I realized after all like 6 years of traveling is that everything that I found I already had or knew. Like even the practice in Brazil as well as Salvador, where everyone wears white on Friday in honor of Obatala or Oshala, that's the divine Almighty God. I was like, my dad did that growing up. You know, I was like, he's done, like, I mean, he's Catholic, but I was like, why have you always worn a white kaftan every Friday? So for me, when I realized that, I was like, everything that I've travel the world to like find and make sense of the fears I wanted to confront. Everything was back home. So after, now I'm looking inward. I feel like all the answers are there. So I want to spend more time back in Nigeria with my family and also expose to them how they are practicing African spirituality even when they don't think they are. So I'm very interested in like my family's archive of photographs. I'm interested in my grandma's astral cave, which is the woven fabrics. Because every event in our family, and most Yoruba families, you make an astral cave for the event. So if the child is born, there's a marriage, someone's 10th birthday. So we have all of those. So I really want to like spend time with it and trace my family's origin through our garb.
Where next? What's coming up for you? Anything you want to highlight, or that you can highlight?
I mean, I have a solo show with Daniel Faria probably a year from now. So, and that's where I really will be exploring like my interiority. Yeah.
One of the other things that I wanted to talk about, if we could go back to Imanado perhaps. Yeah, this idea of, and Yorgo is an example of this. Your practice is very participatory. You bring a lot of folks in to the work that you do, whether they're gifting you pieces that end up in Emanado or...
Did I go past it?
Yeah, I wondered if you could talk a little bit about the importance of collaboration, that participation of others in your work. Because I think if you don't make it explicit, it might get missed that you're working in this way.
So I think my first collaborators are the Orishas. Each Orisha is aligned with a natural phenomenon. So if it's like the wind, water, fire, and as someone who works with found objects, a lot of the things I collect are already weathered. They already carry the processes of these natural phenomena. So I always want to acknowledge them as my first collaborators. But so much of like Yoruba traditional practices is a community effort. Like even when bronze is cast, and I witnessed this in Grand-Bassam, Ivory Coast. The coconut shells that were like thrown out were gathered by one person, who then brought that to the site where the bronze casting would happen. There we go. Yeah. So it like to create these cowrie shells, there was like 6 different people involved. So I really want to honor that in the work that I make. And also like, I'm not the best at everything.
Right.
So I would love to surround myself with the people who are the best at everything. And beyond even just the physical objects we see, one of my greatest collaborators is my friend Ezzy. Ezzy does a lot of my writing. She'll take my crazy ass ideas and make sense of them. And it's a very necessary part of getting to where I am.
Yeah.
Without grants, there's no work. You know what I mean? So collaboration is like super, super important. I also come from a big family, so I feel like everything was always shared. Like my grandma, like you're washing the dishes, you're scraping the floor. Like my grandma was strict. So that idea of working together to achieve something has always been important to me.
You also work very hard, and don't be overly modest, but you work very hard at being an artist in terms of being on Instagram, building community that way. I find you to be very intentional about how you promote your work, how you find connection. Talk a little bit about, and perhaps we can close here, but it's really about the kind of artist you are. You've been practicing now, or showing, I should say, for this is your 10th year.
This is my 10th year.
10th
yeah.
year. You'd have to go back. Was it your first work here in a group show?
It was here in a group show.
2015.
Yeah, and I just realized I didn't answer the second part of your first question.
Oh, let's go back. Yeah.
Right, because you're asking why this show at the age and the concept of Ori.
Yeah.
So yeah, my first show, well, the first
Group show.
group show I was in at Asia was in the basement. And I probably cracked this joke too many times about starting from the bottom. So this is the last time, okay? But why the idea of revisiting the idea of Ori in this space was important was that for me it was definitely a full circle moment. It was also the 10th year of starting this career as an artist, but also showing work in this space. And then the divination trait itself, by being round, there's this sort of like cyclical flow.
Yeah.
It's exploring ideas of like rebirth, reinvention, transformation, boundless creativity, but also like the confidence. And I think when I moved from like, painting, drawing to sculpture, I was uncertain, but within a year I was like, oh no, this is it, like this feels great. So going into this in year 10, I was like, oh, like this is absolutely what I should be doing. And I wanted the show here to acknowledge that.
Right.
Yeah.
And Instagram, because I think it's key.
Okay, so Instagram.
Because I think to be an artist today,
It's tough.
It's tough, and there's a lot of self-promotion. Like you've got to be savvy at knowing how, like the whole sort of you're represented by the gallery, and they're going to. That's fading. So many artists that I speak to are self-represented. They're thinking about different ways of showing their work. So just maybe close with the intentionality around some of the decisions you've made, how you use tools like IG to be where you are today, 10 years of showing work.
I think for me, I'm always going to be my most authentic self. Like, I like to share semi-nude photos of myself online. And I have to say, like, my first collectors, buyers of my work were gay men. So why will I not, continue to like appeal to that market, And of course, like as my following has grown, that's grown into like the art community, it's grown into like students, it's grown into like, other artists. And I think for me, like we talked about earlier, like wanting to like celebrate all of the facets of me, it's the same way I approach my Instagram. I often will get the whispers like, oh, if you didn't do this, if you were like more modest, maybe you'll have more work, maybe you'll be more collection. Like I get all of those things, and there's some opportunities I know I've missed because I'm like open about who I am.
Yes.
But I'm like, sexuality has always been a very present part of my work. So if you're only just realizing that, then you're actually not truly engaging with the work that I'm doing. And yeah, so I use it in that way. I'm just always going to be my most authentic, truest self. And like I said earlier, I think that awareness of the multiplicity of who I am is what feeds the sensitivity in my work. It's what feeds the attention to detail. It's what feeds the ways in which I combine different materials together. It would be a disservice to myself to not embrace all of me, especially after going to Brazil, where you can truly have an OnlyFans page and be the person that embodies an Orisha.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think we have time. Do we have time for? Yeah, we can take some questions if there's any questions for Oluseye. Yes, please.
First of all, I wanted to thank you so much for coming tonight and for sharing everything you shared. I wanted to ask about your personal history a little bit. You said that you are, like, I know that obviously you're Yoruba, and I wanted to ask if you were born in Nigeria, if you grew up speaking Yoruba, or if that, or if the language is something you've learned as you've progressed over the course of your career as an artist.
Okay. I was born in the UK, but I did grow up in Nigeria. I moved back to Nigeria when I was 2. And I understand Yoruba. Again, product of colonization. My parents did not speak Yoruba to us. They spoke it to themselves. So I have an understanding of it, but my spoken Yoruba is not the greatest. So similar to like the ways in which I'm learning about Yoruba spiritual practices, I've also taken an interest in like wanting to be more active in my understanding and being able to speak Yoruba.
I think there was a hand.
Right here. Did you change your mind? Yeah.
Okay, wow. That you're what you're doing is very inspiring and really different. And I wanted to ask you, how did you become confident in showing this type of work and showing yourself? Because this is really vulnerable. How did you keep going to create? Were you fearing, I know I'm asking you,
Go ahead.
the judgment, and did you think about what people would say or how this would be received and your art in general, and how did you move past that? If it was an issue at all, maybe it wasn't. I don't know. That's my question.
I think there was a point in time where I was just like, I have to be honest with myself. The times where I was happiest, like even with my family, was when I was truly myself. And I actually don't know how I'm gonna answer that question. It's a deep one. It's a good one.
But what gave you the courage to put yourself out there like that? And how did you get past that fear? Because all this is unknown, but yet it is known because it's within you and we're all connected.
Yeah.
But not everybody believes that. So
Honestly, in 2013, I woke up one day and I started drawing heads. I actually just started drawing a lot of heads. I have sketchbooks that are just full of heads. And I was like, what is this? And it was at that point I Googled head and I Googled Ori, and then that's where it started for me. And something was just awoken in me, something was ignited. And ever since then, I've just leaned into it.
the knowing, right?
The knowing, it was just like a knowing, but I wanted to know more. You know,
Curiosity.
absolutely, curiosity. It was definitely a curiosity. It felt almost like a calling. I was just like, why do I suddenly want to do this? What is my interest in this? And I wanted more. I always just felt like being raised Christian, and I still like refer to a lot of things from like my Catholic upbringing. I enjoy it. Like I miss my grandma. We'd say the rosary together. But there was something in me that wanted something that felt rooted in where I was from. And I think the desire for that was greater than any fear. Yeah. The desire for that was greater than any fear. And you know, it took me 10 years to make that trip to Brazil to truly confront this thing that I had been told would destroy me, that I should be scared of. And I realized, oh my goodness, this is so liberating. I don't know if that answers your question. It does? Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I noticed part of your work is to collect, you call them diasporic debris, so remnants of blackness throughout the world. So my question is the following: what is your understanding of blackness? And throughout your work, has that work specifically collecting what you deem to be, you know, remnants of blackness, has your understanding of blackness shifted with that work?
For me, blackness means that there's no monolith. it means that there's no one way to be Black. And I think I personally apply that into my life. I'm like, I'm a Black gay man, I can be a Black femme man, I'm a Black, like everything that I am can exist because it exists within the Blackness. And that's what I think has fed my curiosity, because I'm still learning who I am, I'm still discovering what my interests are. And I think that openness to want to know, to want to learn more, to maybe one day becoming a Babalawo, like for me, I'm just like, it's limitless. Like all the things I can do, I can think, I can create. Within Blackness, there's no limit to it. Yes, complex.
Well, you already answered the thirst trap. I was going to ask that for you in case it didn't come up, but you already mentioned that. But how do you find doing your work so centered on your Africanness and having it with the gaze of like non-Black people consuming it in places where like for instance, the AGO, where maybe not the majority of the people who are, at your talks or experiencing your work are taking in your process and your work? How do you find yourself utilizing your practice as exposing that to everybody, and then also like how that differentiates from people who are of that lineage and are discovering it with you, as opposed to other people who aren't of that lineage, who, from a colonialistic background are kind of just like, oh, like you're kind of like coming at me in a way that I don't like, or however that may be. How do you, kind of, how does that
I think
factor in?
What's important is the work that I'm doing is reinforcing African spiritual traditions as living. They're not archaic, they're not old. They're current technology, they're current spiritual technology that are being practiced globally. So regardless of who is coming into the show, I think it's necessary to center African spiritual practices as important, living, valid. They've been there since the beginning of time, and they will continue to be here in the same way people think about Christianity or Islam. For me, the second part of your question, that was a long question.
I think complex, like if I get this right,
It's a complex question.
how others are potentially coming into your work without the appropriate references, and maybe the interpretation is wrong, maybe it's they don't
Or just like how, like, there's like you said, like this Black person behind me, 3 questions behind, was like talking about like experience and how like we as people from the diaspora or African lineage can connect to that because it's in our DNA, versus other people who might not have that association, and how like your work is informing the livity of like this, like we are the first people of the world and this has been going from time, and so like you're not about to erase us, and like your work is a part of enforcing the power structure of like, we've been here, we're here right now, and we're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So here's like how we've come to be, and how some of your colonialistic racist things have shaped the ways in which we've had to walk through the world.
It's getting harder.
I think when you see the show, there's that feeling of peace. Like people have emailed me and be like, your work, that work gives me mental peace. And I think regardless of where we're from, backgrounds, origins, for me it's about showing that there's peace and calm in African spiritual practices and opening up the world to that. Like, what would be wrong if white people decided they wanted to like go practice candomblé, Like so many of us white people are Christians, but like could the reverse not happen because of an exposure to a work like mine? And what do we do in the instance where that happens? Are they accepted into that? I think, go ahead.
I was going to ask a related question that I think might tie this together. Who do you make the work for? When you're making, who are you
The
making it
audience.
for?
I make the work for myself first. And the process is what gives me the happiness and the joy. And those are the moments where I find peace. And then I make the work for all of the communities, first, for all the communities I'm a part of. So I make the work for Africans, I make the work for Black people, And then, if it's work that's about sex and sexuality, then it extends to the LGBT community. But a lot of the times my work has all of those things in it. So the work is for everyone. I think once it leaves me and it's in this space, it's now for everybody, right? You take with it what you can, you find peace in the work if you're able to. Maybe it will spark a curiosity in you.
I think there's some other, oh, yeah.
Hi, Sheriff. Congratulations again. I'm so proud of you. Representing Yoruba very well. I know you grew up in Lagos, and I grew up in Lagos as well. And there was this thing that used to bother me about the absence of history class replaced with social studies. And I wonder if that's something that also added to your curiosity when you came out here or researching Black history.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I went to high school here and there was never a class about anything. Even in history class, there was nothing taught to me about Black Canadian history. And I was kind of embarrassed that I didn't know anything, because I was like, how can I move here with my family and, exist here and I have no awareness or knowledge of who has been here before for me. And I think it was actually that embarrassment that took me to North Preston. I mean, it was a combination of the embarrassment and the curiosity. But I think what was great is acknowledging my embarrassment and like my lack of information, but also realizing that it wasn't entirely my responsibility, but also taking responsibility.
Okay, you already asked the question. I'm gonna go to someone who hasn't.
Hi. In relation to the name Origin, I was wondering if it was like intentional when you like titled it, as per my head is correct, but also Ori as in like deity. So like deity is correct. And was it an intentional? What was the reason behind the name Origin?
Yeah, so it's both things. So the Ori as a deity, it's almost like your own personal Orisha. So you can actually pray to your Ori, and every morning you can be like, my Ori is correct, my Ori will make me happy, my Ori will bring me joy, my Ori will inspire all of the people around me. So yeah, it's definitely playing with the spiritual idea of your Ori as your destiny, but also that you're healthy, like your head is correct, like my physical head is okay.
Because of time, I think we'll take 2 more questions. Maybe one, like, keep them brief.
So don't pass it to complex.
I think mine's quite simple. I mean, you said you've been practicing for like 10 years. What advice would you give yourself if you could go back in time and kind of meet you starting out and anyone starting out on their artistic journey?
I would say, as much as you can, create the opportunities that don't exist. Like a lot of my first shows were in storefronts. I mean, the whole museum thing, it only happened like the last 3 years for me, right? But I, again, was collaborating with my friends. One of the first projects I did was with photographer Ja Gray, and we literally, this is when the city of Toronto had an issue with carding Black men. And we literally rented a car, we stopped every Black man we saw in the city, and we asked if we could take their photo. We didn't tell them what we were doing with their photos. But it was also a study to see how people would react because of the carding issue, if they would allow us to take their photo, decline, and then we would ask the reason why they were declining. And I think we got about 450 photos of men, and we like pasted these photos all over the city. We got our own space in collaboration with Blank Canvas, and we had our own exhibition. So I think it's great to disrupt. Like, you can't wait for institutions to give you an opportunity. I mean, this is nice, thank you.
Thanks, Julie.
But I think you have to go out and do it for yourself, do it for your community. Like, whatever inspires you, live it, do it. Yeah, don't wait around. Maybe that's the Nigerian in me. It's just like this idea of hustling. Like I'm not gonna hang around for anyone to like hand me something. I will take it or I'll create it.
That's what I was alluding to in terms
With the
of
Instagram.
Yeah, it comes through. Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay to call out institutions when they haven't acquired your work also. So, and no, it's true. The National Gallery has recently acquired, but all the other like provincial cities, please, I make great work. It should be collected.
Two final ones.
Okay.
Final?
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
So I have some questions. I was really interested in what.
One question,
One question. You mentioned how you connected with Christianity with your grandmother, but also how you also connect with traditional Yoruba rituals and stuff. So I was wondering how do both of those things connect? How do you intertwine? You know, obviously Christianity is part of colonization, but you still bring out Yoruba and kind of bring them together. So how do you feel about that?
Okay. So this idea of like the syncretization is something that Black people have done throughout time, and say people from Africa arriving in South America, North America, and preserving their traditions through a syncretization with, say, the different saints. So it's a thing that's always been done. But how I do it, I think I pick and choose what works for me. I think Christianity taught me to be disciplined. Yeah, it taught me to be somewhat disciplined, and sometimes that feeling of guilt and shame isn't such a bad thing. Because I think it gives me a moment to pause and think about the actions that I'm about to take. So if I feel like a little bit of guilt or shame, I'm like, okay, that means this is an important decision, and I need to think carefully about what I decide, like who is affected by this decision. The African spiritual practices, I think for me, in no longer having fear around them, it's kind of made me fearless. Now I'm like, I can confront anything. Like in Salvador, we went into this dark forest, and we saw the Egu masquerades. And the Egu masquerading, it's a masquerade ritual that left Africa, and it only exists in this island in Brazil. And they only come out like every so often, and it's one of the most beautiful things I've seen. So I think for me, it's that balance between like a little bit of restriction, but just enough freedom. And where those two things meet, I think is where like I'm able to excel.
My question is just with your show here. You're doing something that's typically done with fates, like you said, the Orisha, they're the ones who place the shells in the way they are.
Yeah.
Did you cast the shells, or did you embody an Orisha and put the shells where you wanted? And it's just that mix of intention, but also fate.
Okay. So in the show upstairs, the cowries are actually placed in the same location when I had my first reading. Yeah. So it's very symbolic. And my readings were all very open. So it's like your paths are open. It was a very good reading, the first one that I had.
Thank you so much. Thanks for coming.
The AJO is open until 9 p.m. tonight, so please do head up there and spend some time in the show.
Thank you, everyone.
Amazing, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. Yeah, that was awesome.
Hey.
Fabulous.
Thank you for always being here.
Fabulous.
Thank you.
I remember when. I remember you when. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Lovely.
I was like, this is like a nerve-wracking
Thank you. Thank you. It's great.
Thank you.
Is it? Okay, I'll go get it.
Thank you.
Could the three of you stand together just for a sec?
I too hope the institution can acquire.
It wasn't directed.
The pressure
It
is
wasn't
real.
directed at the AGO. It was directed at all
It has
Canadian. Not
been.
you.
I
Not
know.
you. All Canadian institutions.
Wonderful. It's on video, so I'm getting you laughing. I know, Julie's not a laugh, it's not a smiler, so. There it is, there it is.
Thank you.
Love it.
Amazing.
Beautiful.
That was amazing.
Well done, Neil.
Thank you for coming.
It was thorough.
Aaron.
Dug in with places that,
Good,
like,
good.
I'll catch this one on YouTube. I follow you. Right?
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay, cool, you'll see this. But you're here, you saw it already.
Yeah, I saw it already. No, but it's like a different POV.
You know what? I actually have those interviews I did with you when you did the residency at NIA back in the day. I should send it to you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, when you were doing the you were actually doing it on site. You remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have that, those clips.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
But nice to see you. I'm
You
heading
too.
out, though.
All right, no worries. And I also have you skateboarding.
Yeah, I don't remember where that is.
You remember that one?
Yeah, no.
On Bathurst at the rink.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know the day, but like,
It's
I believe it
named
happened.
named after the black. God, I forget his name now, but they renamed it after the black hockey player. Yeah. All right, good to see you.
take care.
Hello.
Because you're also Yoruba.
Yoruba.
It's a good one.
Troydell. How you doing?
How's it going, sir?
Good, man. Good. You were here for the show?
Yeah.
You ever talk?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It was a good little talk, a good little break from the whole.
I'm looking forward to your talk. Not when you're interviewing, but when you're actually talking about your work.
To be determined.
Yes, manifest.
How you doing, sir?
All right, good. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Oh,
I didn't know what was happening.
He was talking about Orishas, and like, my people, my Obatala.
how you doing?
How are you? Good to see you.
Good. How are you?
I'm good.
It's so funny because I'm here remembering photos I have of that first show that you were in down in the basement. Yeah. Might even have some video. I should go find it. Yeah.
How do you survive with memory? Like
I
storage?
1 terabyte.
It's on YouTube.
Oh,
1 terabyte. And then I put on YouTube, yeah.
so you have a 1 terabyte storage.
On this, yeah. But it's still full because even now I'm like it's choking. So, but I put it on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What's this YouTube channel?
VIS space RIA.
Yeah, so if I miss anything, I always just go on there and I see what happened. Like there was and you when I did this film,
VIS space RIA. Yeah. What did you say? Were
I
you?
did the documentary film on the Black women artists, and we used your footage.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Remember we
Oh, yeah, you did. Yeah, you did contact me. Yeah. That's right.
yes, we had licensing agreement.
Yes. No. I did. Yeah, I know. Amazing. Because I've known him pre being an artist. So to hear him talk about the work, I mean, I've talked to him here and there, but to hear him sit, just like you, when you sit and you talk about your work, I go, oh, now I'm catching the full scope of it, right? As opposed to getting bits and pieces here and there. Yeah, no, it was lovely. Yeah, I love it.
I haven't heard him talk about his work
Yeah.
before, so it was
Yeah.
We've known each other since high school.
I've sort of interviewed him at his different shows and caught pieces, but to hear him talk about the work at this point in terms of an evolution was striking. Yeah, very striking.
Okay, I'm gonna go see the work. I'll see you soon.
Okay, then from there you're going, right?
Okay, text me.
Yeah.
You're still here.
No problem.
Text me.
Hi, how are you? Good. You too. Hanging in. Hanging in. You know? Yeah, I'm getting things. You have my ring?
Your ring, yeah.
Is
I
that-
didn't wear mine today. I didn't wear mine today.
Yeah, I have one, but it broke and then they sold out, so I'm still waiting for that one to come in, which is a thicker one of the flag.
Yeah.
Especially now
I
after.
have a beaded one. But
Yeah?
I'm like, I got on the train today. I was like, where's my ring? How could I forget it?
Yeah, because Melissa has made us more patriotic. Is your family where you're from okay?
Some extent. Yeah. Some extent.
Where in Jamaica?
The West. Trelawney.
So you're in West. I'm Trelawney too.
Really?
I'm South Trelawney, up in Lorimer's, between Low River and Christiana.
I've heard of Christiana.
You go down to Albert Town,
I've heard of
and
these places.
so where in Trelawney are you?
Like Falmouth.
You're on the coast. You're north. You're by the water. We're up in the mountains.
I know some of these places, Green Park, Bounty Hall, Granville. Do you know those areas? Like you pass Falmouth and then you get to Granville and then from Granville.
Yeah, it depends on which route you go. The route I go is through Alps and
Okay.
up through Stewart Town and the sugar
Okay,
sugar fields,
Stewart Town.
and then you go into Albert Town and wait a bit. And my little town was where that big breakaway happened. I don't know if you saw where the road broke away and they had to like squeeze on the corner and detour. Yeah, no, my area was badly. Luckily, my family's places were built